Okay, so at this point, we've got our animation working out just fine. Now we need to go ahead and make the interior tentacles. And then from there, we'll go ahead and render off a pass of our body, and then a pass with our tentacles, and we'll start compositing it into our final shot. Okay, so I'm just moving around my panel here. I'm going to create a plane, and with this plane, we're going to go ahead and start creating the interior of our tentacles. So to do this, I'm just going to come into a side view. I'm going to drag a plane out from the center here, down to roughly where our tentacles, our long ones, will be. These are going to be longer than our normal tentacles. Okay, so we're going to need a few more segments here, just going to help break this guy up a little bit, because we're going to use some modifiers here to really make this effect. Okay, so we're going to add on a noise modifier. Alright, we're going to lower our scale quite low. We're going to start adjusting our strengths here on different axes just to get this overall look. Alright, kind of works maybe a bit too much in Y, I believe it is, or Z. We can adjust our scales just to kind of play around and see what we can get here. More X. Okay, we're going to throw a mesh smooth on top of this so to kind of make it look a little bit more organic. Okay, we're going to throw a wave modifier on top of this and a, let's see here, I guess another noise modifier. And we'll throw a bend modifier on top. Okay, so a lot's going on with this object. What we're going to do is we just set our pivot at the top here, and we're going to do an attachment constraint to that torus underneath. Before we do that, I'm going to isolate this object. I'm going to work with this by itself for now. What we need to do is start animating some of this stuff. So we're going to our wave deformer. We got our gizmos, and we can start, I think we'll be playing with our phase. So we need to get something kind of set up here. So here's our amplitude in both different axes. And if we adjust our phase over time, kind of get this effect. That's a bit much, unless we animated it really slow. But I think our amplitudes are just a bit too much for what we need. Just going to play around with this so we get the effect. So that's something very subtle. It's kind of hard to see when you always got that gizmo there. Just play this here. But we have to animate our phase. So what I'll do is I'll animate our phase over time. So from, let's come down to our gizmo and set our key filters to modifiers. Okay, set auto key. I'm going to key from this point down to the end. And I think at this point we'll just change our phase to something a little bit higher. If we have to, we can make that smaller. Alright, so what's happening is we're actually slowing in and then slowing out of this. So I can either undo this and just change my default in and out tangents, or I can go into our curve editor and set it there. So I'll just do that. Go into a curve editor. We're going to find our attribute for this. It's under our modified object, under wave, under phase. Looks like I hit Control Z too many times and we're actually not getting our phase animated anymore. So hit key here, go to the end, hit key, I'm going to upper phase here, and I'll just show both ways here. Go down to our phase, and you can kind of see the line already. Just go to phase, and you can just select all the keys and then just set to linear, like that. I'm just going to go back a few steps here and just show you how you do it down here without having to do that. So you come down here and you set your default in and outs to linear. And then when you hit key, by default, it automatically know that it's got to set its stuff up that way. So bring it up to 60, auto key, and you'll see that it's not going to ease in and out of that. In this case, it looks like it did. Must be because I didn't delete the keys before I set it. But that's how you would go ahead and do that. In fact, I want to make it right. So key, set this to 60 some, hit play. and then you can see it's a constant speed right from the beginning. Okay. So I think we need to go ahead and turn off auto key and just kind of play around with our amplitudes. I feel like they're just a bit too much. I want to have a really calm look to this. It's going into the negatives here, we could bring this really close to 0. Right, this one's going to come lower. Alright, what we can do is also adjust our wavelength so that there either more happens in there, or you can have like one really long constant wave. So here we have a whole bunch of them, or we could just really increase our wavelength. Keep going until we get like 1. Play around with these settings so you get the overall look at what you're looking for. Bring this down a little bit. Okay, so I think I'm looking for something like that. If I hit play, this doesn't look so bad at all. A little bit of flow. Increase our wave size a little bit. Alright. So the only problem I think is happening here is we're going through our phases too quick here at this point. Okay, so I'm just going to go to the last key and turn auto key back on. I'm just going to lower my phase down from 70 down to about maybe 30. Just cut that in half. Alright, perfect. So I get that very slow, but it's still moving. At this point, I think I'm going to go ahead and copy, paste an instance of this guy. Actually, I'll make it unique. I'm just going to go into this guy's gizmo, and I'm just going to rotate that 90 degrees. So now I get a wave going in both directions. This really breaks this guy up. Okay, great. Alright, so those guys are done. We're going to go up into our noise modifier. Now, I wasn't sure if I'm going to use this or not. I didn't in the original tutorial, or original video, but just see what happens if I adjust the scale. Just set this to animate noise. I think it might be too much. I find that really breaks up the animation a little bit, really makes it look not so wavy, so kind of just gives it that extra secondary that I was looking for. Just play around with some of these and see what we can get here. Perfect. Okay, so at this point, I want to start animating with my bend deformer. I'll just move this up to the top. Our limit's nothing here. Okay, so kind of getting the effect I want, but we're a bit extreme here, so I'm just going to adjust the angle. I'm really good, happy with the direction. You can just kind of like animate that over time, kind of get that through the top view, see what's going on here. So you kind of get that cylindrical effect going on, and that's kind of what we're looking for at this point. Just something at the bottom, just to make it look like, you know, nothing's really controlling it at this bottom. And we can animate how strong the angle is, and we can animate the strength, so, or the direction. So I think the direction is something we can animate just over time. So I'm going to key this at this point, key that. We'll just set this to, I think I go around maybe a few times there. See how fast that's actually going. Okay, I'm good with that. And then we're just going to set up our angle. Turn off auto key and turn this down a little bit. Actually, I think for the angle, I'm going to set a noise float for this. So go into a curve editor. We'll go down to modified object, bend. Scroll down until we find angle. You're going to right click on this and assign a controller. And we'll set this to noise float. All right, much like we did there before for the gravity, we're going to set the strength up a little bit here. Frequency, not so much. Kind of want it to stay different directions, but not all over the place so fast. So kind of want to give it some strength, but I don't know about this frequency. Try different seed here. That one there. See what that looks like. Okay, so our angle, our strength on our angle isn't quite high enough. So we're going to go back into our curve editor. Go to properties. I'm just going to up our strength by a little bit. See what happens. Okay, it really needs some strength. I'm kind of underestimating this. Objects. Crank that right up. There we go. So we get some twitching here at the end. We got a lot of keys in the middle, which we don't really need. I think it's because I was adjusting them during a playback with auto key turned on. So we'll just turn those off so we get a constant to this. Okay, so I was just going for an overall subtle look. You can, to your heart's content, just play with all these all you want. You can adjust the first wave so it moves a lot in one direction. You can really see the control you can get just with noise controllers and just noise floats set up and animating by hand if you like. And just come in here, you can just change the direction just by default so it sets it to a different direction. So what we're going to do here is just undo that. Just start positioning these guys all together. Just going to get it in the rough position. I know we're going to go ahead and attach to the cylinder. I'm going to duplicate one. I'm going to set it to instance and move this one over. And you have a hard time telling that they're doing the exact same thing, and they should do kind of roughly the same thing, but they should have just a little bit of variation. So to kind of offset the fact that they look alike, we're just going to scale them up in Z just to kind of give them a different look. We'll position them around in like a triangle setup here. Rotate them different angles. Just kind of hide the fact that they're doing the same animation. Right, I think this one maybe is a little drastic.